Good morning. That is the saddest good morning ever. Let's try it again. Good morning. I'm happy to be here. I hope you guys are happy to see me. So, Valentini, thank you so much for the invitation to be here. I am absolutely really just thrilled to join you all. My former chair of the boards, you may know her, Rose McKinney James, was one of your ambassadors several years ago. And she would also be, I think, thrilled to have me here. I'm going to talk with you today about choosing energy on purpose. And I'm going to start by sharing with you that when I was a kid and people asked me what I wanted to be when I was going to grow up, I would tell them that I wanted to be a teacher, and then I wanted to be a social worker, and then I wanted to be a doctor, because I knew that would make my dad happy. And then I wanted to work in business. And the surprising thing is that in the 25, 30 years that I've been working, I've actually had the opportunity to be all of those things in this industry. I have been a teacher. I have been a social worker. I actually have been a doctor, more like a psychiatrist, but I have been one. And I work in business. And so while I started in this business on accident, I stayed for 30 years on purpose. During my career, I've had roles in customer service and credit and collections, probably the most informative times of my career. I have had roles in community relations and community outreach, in economic development, in government affairs, in regulatory affairs, in communications, operations, and now I'm a CEO. And so what I want to do today is just share with you guys some of the things that I've learned in this kind of span of time. And the first is this: personal clarity is important. Now I'm going to start by telling you that this is not something that I came up with on my own. Charlotte Beers, who's actually a native of Texas, is one of my early heroes. And I don't know, does anybody here know who Charlotte Beers is? Probably not. You do, right? So Charlotte Beers is the first woman to be a CEO of one of the big four ad agencies in the early 90s, Ogilvy and Mather. And when I came out of college, I wanted to be in advertising. That was my dream. And so to have this woman, right, become the CEO of one of the big four, one of the largest agencies in the world, is an enormous deal. And in 1994, she was on the cover of Fortune magazine. And they asked her about her role as a woman in an industry that was male-dominated. And one of the things that she said that still rings true is she said, you know, to be a woman who's leading an agency of all men does not mean that I should be a man and that I have to act like a man. And so to put this into context for some of our younger ladies, back in the late 80s, early 90s, the time of Melanie Griffith and Working Girl, powerful women, women who were seen to be powerful leaders, wore dark blue suits with pinstripes and red ties, and they were, you know, busting whatever and really kicking behind. And so for her to say, you know, it is okay to be feminine and to lead is what I would say is what we say today is it is okay to be who you are. To be authentic does not diminish your opportunity and your ability to be an exceptional leader. But more recently, what she has said in a TEDx talk is about personal clarity being important. And what she says is that oftentimes, and I think this is true, which is why I repeat it, we define ourselves as the work that we do. I am a CEO, I'm an engineer, I'm an accountant, that is the definition. But in fact, the truth is, the work that we do is not who we are. It is how we deliver the work. And there's a difference. I want to be considered a great CEO. I don't know what that means. But the truth of the matter is the definition of me is how I lead my organization and my team. How I deliver that work. How I communicate with other people. How I move through my organization and other organizations. And all of that happens and is based on who I am as a person. It is framed by the way that I was raised. It was framed by my own personal experiences. And so I drive my decisions with that base in mind. So personal clarity is important. Another way to say it, being self-aware is important. Who are you? Not who do people say you are, not who do you want to be, but who are you? And we all have the opportunity to divine those things for ourselves. But that understanding is absolutely critical to the way that we lead. And finally, I will just say, if you have a desire to be a leader, be one. Don't wait for a title, because a title does not make you a leader. A title is a job definition. That's what it is. And so if you want to lead, then lead. Another thought. Early in my career, I worked for a small gas company, and my CEO at the time was a gentleman by the name of Branko Terzic. And Branko Terzic had just come off of FERC as a FERC commissioner. Prior to that, he had been a commissioner in the state of Wisconsin. He brought all of the women together. There were not many, which was sad. It was a small room. And he just shared some thoughts. And the one thought that he shared many thoughts. The one I took away was the importance of reading. And he began to lay out all the things that he read. And I thought, well, I can read, because I was, 25. The CEO says you should read a lot of stuff. I'm going to read a lot of stuff because I want to impress this guy. And on those rare occasions that I saw him, I'd ask him, hey, have you read this article in Business Week? Hey, did you read that article in Esquire? It could have been anything. Sometimes he had read it, many times he hadn't. But it allowed me to connect with him, right, so that he would know who I was, and at the very least, he knew that I took his words to heart. And in the end, this CEO became my sponsor, he became my mentor, and 30 years later, he is my friend. But the important thing about reading is all the knowledge that you gain and the way that you're able to use it or not use it. It allows you to connect the dots. In my world, it allows you to connect with people. Reading is just a really great thing to do. Now, I will tell you, I am not a bookworm. I love to read, but I also love reality TV. I love The Real Housewives, Beverly Hills, not a big fan of the others. I love Married to Medicine, Atlanta, not a big fan of LA. I love Iyanla Vanzant's Fixing of a Life in what seems to be 48 minutes. So it's not that I only read. It's that I am curious about stuff in general. And I use that curiosity to fuel my connection with the people that I meet, whether they be the CEO of Chevron, whether it's a member of Congress. I also use it to inform my perspectives. And honestly, it helps me better understand all the stuff I do not know and all the things that I can learn from other people. Reading truly is fundamental. Third item, and this I learned from a woman by the name of Anne Parmejor. Does anybody know Anne Parmejor? So several years ago, Anne said this at a leadership conference: intuition is a skill. Intuition is a skill. I believe it is important to trust your gut. I call it my third eye. People who know me and they have a quandary, I say, well, what does your third eye tell you? That's your intuition. And that is the ability really to understand something immediately without the need for all this conscious reading and analytics. It's just something in here that tells you this is so. And I would suggest that the more informed you are and the better your listening skills, the stronger your intuition. Does this mean that you're going to get it right every single time? Absolutely not. You're not. I haven't. I don't. Does it mean that you don't take any risks? Absolutely not. You do. And you will try and you will fail. But what your intuition will do for you is help you to figure out what the path is. It'll help you to figure out when you need to pivot, and you will need to pivot. There's some clarity there, and that we should trust our instincts. And for me, not only do I trust my instincts, I trust my team's instincts. And I'm very quick to say, so what do you think about that? And they'll say, well, I'm not sure. What do you think? I don't know. You tell me what you think, and let's work it out. And let's move forward with what you think. Because I want them to trust their gut. I want them to trust their gut. Intuition is absolutely a skill. Fourth item, this came from a colleague, a dear friend of mine when I first started lobbying. And he said, if you want to be a good advocate, you have to understand the perspectives of those you disagree with. You have got to know what they're saying on the other side. And not know it because you want to have talking point versus talking point. Know it because you want to understand where they are coming from. Because that's how you're effective. Because I'm going to tell you something that happens in Washington. It is true that politics makes strange bedfellows. Right? It's about an issue, not about the person. On TV, it's about the person. In the halls of Congress, it's about the issue. But here's the other thing that I will tell you. There is always a consensus to be had. There is more times than not, there is middle ground. But if I don't understand where you are and you don't understand where I am, we don't get there. It's impossible. And so taking that time to listen, to read, to connect, all of those things allow you to be a really strong advocate for your perspective. And you might be surprised at how many times, sometimes that makes you change your mind, and sometimes how much it makes them change their mind. So to be a good advocate, understand the perspectives of the person that you disagree with. And I will tell you that I think that is probably one of the most important things we can do in a day and time where it is so easy to find people who will validate our perspectives. It's easy to find people who will agree with you. It used to be really hard to find people who will agree with you. Now it's very, very easy. Look for those who disagree and take the time to understand why you disagree, because there's a nuance in there that is really your middle ground, and that's how we get our work done. And the last nugget I'm going to share is from my mom, who is my original hero. And I'm just going to share some of them. My mother was born in 1925. She grew up during the Depression. She graduated from high school at 15 and worked essentially as a domestic because that's what Black people could do. And she was 15. She graduated from college at 18 and 19 years old, and she still worked in people's houses. She had the opportunity to know Langston Hughes and Marcus Garvey. She had a tremendous life. But one of the things that she would always tell me is, my job is not to judge. She would tell me all these crazy stories about people that she knew, and I would say, Mom, how could you possibly support someone who do something like that? How could you still be her friend if she's doing X, Y, Z? How could you still do such and such if he did X, Y, Z? And she'd say to me, Paula, my job is not to judge. She says, and quite frankly, I do not want to bear that level of responsibility. That's not my job. And so my job is to do what I do in the best way I know how and in a way that reflects who I am. It's a perspective that informs the way that I interact with people. It's a perspective that informs the way that I do my work. So personal clarity, reading, trusting your gut, understanding the perspective of other people's, and quite frankly, no judgment. They're my tools. They're my tools that I get through every single day with. I, quite frankly, am not always confident. Many times I suffer from imposter syndrome. I am an introvert, which is why when you started introducing me, I was sitting way in the back of the corner. It's not that I'm not friendly, and if someone talks to me, I'm the first one to give you a hug, but I'm an introvert. I'm very shy. I like to be by myself. This May, my daughter finished graduate school, and at her luncheon we had with her, we were talking about, like, what are you going to do next, and blah, blah, blah. And my daughter is an advocate and an activist, and she's been an activist since she's 9, and I know this child's going to be an activist till the day she dies. And I kept thinking about that when I was paying for this graduate school, because I couldn't quite understand what I was paying for. But she got this master's degree in organizational management. And I said, so Sarah, what are we going to do? What's the next thing? What's your next job? And she said, Mommy, I'm not looking for my next job. I'm looking for my life's work. And I was like, your life's work? She said, I'm looking for my life's work. Now, I will tell you, my husband and I sat across from each other and really tried hard not to roll our eyes. And then I said to him really quietly, I think the world is going to break this child's heart. And then I thought about what she said. Her life's work. And don't we all aspire to that in some kind of way? What is my life's work? I thought my life's work was to be a teacher. And then I thought my work would be a social worker. And then I thought I'd be a doctor. But at the end of the day, my life's work is in energy. And in that, I get to do all of those other things. And so I'm going to end with a story for you guys. I started by telling you that the most informative job I ever had was in customer service and credit collections. It was the most impactful job I've ever had in my entire life. Customers coming in to pay their bill when we shut them off, trying to get them back on, like all of that. And I was not good at credit and collections because it's awful. It's just awful, the things that people have to go through. But I can still remember a customer who came in who was about my age, so probably about 25. She had 3 small children, all under the age of 5. She actually did not live far from where I lived. I knew the housing project where she lived in. She had a high school education, but nothing more. She was barely working. She was getting some city assistance, and she comes in and has a bill that's about $900 when she's bringing in cash about $400 a month. And our corporate policy is, I need 50% or you don't go back on. There's no way she can give me 50%, and even if she did, there's no way she could keep it up. You're making $400, the bill is 8 past due, and I know that bill every month is $350, $400 a month, because she lives in substandard housing with a landlord who's really not going to do anything, and she doesn't have anything. And I say to her, what is it that you can do? And she, with the greatest amount of humility that I've ever met in a person, begins to run down the situation of her life to me, who is a complete stranger, showing me her paycheck, showing me her Section 8 stub. This is all I have. This is what I get. And she says, I know that I can give you $5 a month, a week, whatever it was. And I said, okay. And every Friday, this lady got on a bus with 3 little kids to ride an hour to give me $5. I think of her often. I think of her all the time, because that is really what my purpose in my life's work is, right? My life's work isn't necessarily energy. And when I talked about being a teacher and a social worker and a doctor, what I was really saying is that I wanted to be somebody who did something for somebody. I found it in energy, but all I really want to do is be somebody who did something for somebody. And that particular customer will always sit in my mind in the work that I do and the things that I advocate for. I think of her. I don't think about the companies that support my organization. I don't think about whether it's clean energy, fossil fuel. I don't think about that. I think about her. And what is it that we do that is going to make her life better so that she doesn't have to just give me $5 just to keep it on and then beg some lady or man who's at the counter to have empathy and sympathy for that situation. And so I do believe that it's important that people recognize the things that you do. I'm not going to tell you that I don't like recognition. I love recognition. Recognition is great. But quite frankly, it's more important that I just do my work. And I thank you for your time.